And my umbrella. Well, my name is Tom. We have something like 2 hours time for the inner part of this city, and of course for this day I will give you many facts or many uh, impressions about the collections. We have some museums in Dresden, and that's the best day to spend your time in a museum. Well, okay, ladies and gentlemen, that building is the palace. Of course, we will go in, but later on it will be closed for the next hour until 10. But let's go out first that way down to the Zwinger courtyard, please. And I will talk even during the way. Players' party location. 300 years ago, Barockian style celebrations. That was 300 years ago or I should say representation was a big part of the policy of the rulers of that time. Well, and you all know, I guess, Louis the 14th, the Sun King in France, with his small palace in Versailles, small garden surrounding the palace. Well, that was a style 300 years ago. That was a sort of policy. Well, to show to everyone how wealthy how important one country was. And Saxony, that region in the past, was one of the most wealthiest regions in Europe, since we have on our territory the Ore Mountains. Ore Mountains, in German Erzgebirge. It marks the borderline between Bohemia, Czech Republic, and Saxonia, Germany. And well, they found the first silver there in the Ore Mountains back in the 12th century. And well, they founded a small city there, Freiberg. And then for 700 years, silver mining went on in Saxony, and tin mining, cobalt, and so on. And that made Saxony quite wealthy, mining. And from that money, this building here was paid. Augustus, he had, well, 354. Of course, you know it's just a legend. Well, actually, he officially was father of 9 children, just 9. One together with his wife, and the other 8 together with his mistresses. Quite common for the European rulers 300 years ago, not anymore, but 300 years ago, to have a wife and a so-called wife to the left, mistress sans titre. And Augustus the Strong, he was a big friend of this. Taschenberg Palace, the yellow building where we were next to, that was actually constructed for one of his mistresses, Countess of Cosel, Gräfin Cosel, Anna Constantia von Cosel. They had an affair of 8 years, they had 3 children together, and for her he constructed the nowadays as a hotel-used building. Well, this, his firstborn son, he was married to the firstborn daughter of the German emperor. That's a couple of years ago. Today, Augustus, he was mad for porcelain. He said about himself he had the porcelain disease. He finally collected here in Dresden a collection of more than 30,000 items of porcelain. When I talk about the Zwinger as a party location, so it was actually constructed for 2 reasons. Party was just one. And they also constructed such big buildings, but usually out of wood. After the party, they were flattened again. And our ruler here, Saxonia, was twice as big as nowadays, and a wealthy country. He said, well, we like to party here. And we also have the money to do so. So let's construct something permanent. Let's build it out of stone, and, well, to make the circle round, the Zwinger building is the last remaining celebrational courtyard we can find in Europe. Well, one can find in Europe, so it's something unique. It's something unique. And the name Zwinger, to give you this expression, that's actually, Zwinger, it's actually a term of fortification language, of military language from the past. When they surrounded in the past a city or a castle by a wall in order to construct a fortification, they usually surrounded a city not just by one, but by 2 walls. It worked like that. Well, Outer wall, inner city wall, an empty space of 20-30 meters in between. These buildings here, by the way, they all were constructed out of sandstone. We get it next from here from the sandstone mountains, and that's the reason why these buildings are all so black, so dark. I will talk a bit more about that because that's interesting to know. Ladies and gentlemen, let's walk on. There is Theatre Square. Theatre Square. And by the way, the horseman, this is one of our kings from the 19th century. King John, or König Johann. In German, König Johann. Well, I've got one picture from Theatre Square. Let me look for it. Or one picture from Theatre Square. Well, he just asked me for the destruction of Dresden back in February 1945, and well, I will talk a bit more about this, of course, but I need a roof above my head to use that folder. But just let me give you one impression here. Here it is. Look, this picture was taken just 3 days after the bombing of Dresden. February 13th, 14th, the city went up in flames. And this is Theatre Square. What you see, just to name the buildings quickly, Opera over there, the Semper Opera building behind you, the gallery. So the West Wing took some hits. And over there, that church. This is the court church, and next to it the palace. And as you see here, there was not much left. Well, there was not much left. And especially if I'm a city guide here in Dresden, and especially if I am around here on a tour with people coming from West Germany. So it's always very interesting for them to know that not all these buildings were reconstructed after the reunification of Germany, but after World War II, even in the GDR, because even under communist government, they took care for these buildings, or they recovered them from the ground on. One example. You might ask if one is talking about the destruction of that city, that it's a total destruction of an area of 14, 15 square scenic spots, Saxon Switzerland. It's just 20 miles away in eastern directions. And the quarries are there. And the material we get from there, that variety of sandstone includes a lot of metal, like copper, manganese, basically iron connections. When the stone becomes wet, with this weather, these metals, by physical, chemical process, they move very slowly. It takes decades to the surface, concentrate underneath the surface, get in contact with air, oxidize after 50, 60, 80 years, the stone becomes all black or dark brown, dark gray. For that reason, it's not cleanable, because this is not just a layer, a thin layer like a skin. It's not something like a copper roof becomes green after 40, 45 years. Well, the stone needs twice as long, and that black layer goes much deeper. In parts of the stone, a half-inch deep, and for that reason, we can't take it off. Well, we could, but then you had black regions, white regions, black regions on the stone, and for that reason, they say the stone becomes black latest after 100 years, and so it is. Well, it looks like pollution. Or if one knows about World War II and Dresden, it looks like smoke back from February 45, but it's both not. It's by, natural processes. If we would go to the Saxon Switzerland, we would find all rocks black, dark brown, dark gray. On that spots where a piece of these rocks just cracked away, we find it bright beige for 100 years. Yeah, that's the reason about the sandstone. And now Let's cross the street, walk beneath the palace and the church, and let's get an impression from the interior of the church. Gentlemen, come closer, come around. If you are so far away you can't see about what I am talking. Here is some, from my point of view, interesting part or interesting wall in Dresden. That in writing was done in May 1945 by a Russian troop. Khanutin was his name. He was a young guy, 24, 25 years, and he was head of a group of 4 or 5 troops, Russian troops, and he checked all the buildings in the center and then put with paint, with oil paint here, building checked, no mines found, and then his sign. And we have 4 of these signs here on these in the inner part of the city, but usually normally you can't see because you just walk on a church, a Catholic church, to be exact. Well, that dates back more than 300 years ago. Augustus the Strong, one time more him. He was Elector of Saxony. That was in the past. It was in Saxonia. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was in Germany like this, that if the German king passed away, there was a meeting of the rulers of the 7 most wealthiest regions in Germany. They met and figured out who's the next one to become king. Well, the electors, they elected the next king. That's why they were called the electors, and the Saxonian ruler was one of the electors. So Augustus was one of the electors, but that was not enough for him. He was looking for a second job, something like this, and our neighbors, the Polish, they had a big problem. 1696, the Polish king passed away without sons, only daughters. That was the problem. And the Polish nobles, they asked in entire Europe, the nobility who wanted to become next king of Poland. And Augustus, he wanted. There were many others who wanted to become king of Poland. And, well, the one who paid the lot or the most money to the Polish nobles, he won. And Augustus, he sent 20 million thaler to Poland. 1 thaler of the year 1700. 1 thaler is worth like 650 euro today. So we speak about a sum of 12, 13 billions euro sent to Poland. The Polish nobles said, well, he's perfect for this job, or Augustus the Strong. So they elected him as their new king, but before they crowned him, Poland is a Catholic country. Augustus, he was Lutheran. For that reason, to become king of Poland, he switched confession from Lutheran to Catholic. And from that time, 1696, we have here in Saxonia that strange circumstance. The kings are Catholic, the Saxons, the people, are mostly Protestant, Lutheran. It's not anymore like this. Especially in East Germany, we have 20% of the population is still religious in East Germany, and in Saxony it's also 20% of the population, and from these 85% Lutheran, 12 Catholic, and 3 others. Well, that church, it's for that reason, because Augustus is strong, he switched confession, Catholic, constructed not by Augustus the Strong himself, but by his son, the one with a big wedding party in the Zwinger courtyard. Well, he constructed together with his wife that building, and, well, actually they finished the church 1754, and they wanted to start the interior decoration. Actually it was survived. Well, however, that picture taken in the 1940s, this is the altar with that bigger painting. Don't know. This is a view on the church from Theatre Square. You see, as I mentioned, the outer walls, the outer shell of the bigger building still stood upright, But inside, an interior view, inside everything just burned out. Well, on that church there are 78 sculptures of several cents, and even some of these sculptures were destroyed. Well, and if we still would be here on that position on Theatre Square, we could see these newly made sculptures. These saints are still much brighter than the other sculptures, which are black on the attics. Well, yeah, real. And 1976, I think, 1976, he also placed here in the Catholic Church one of his modern altars, and this is like a pieta. Well, Mary, Jesus, maybe the dawn crown of Jesus, or one also can see it as a broken city or as a broken building, which she is holding in her hands. Though, and these two dates are very much connected. Huh. There was actually another altar, but that was destroyed in that night, 45, and so replaced by modern forms. Oh. Well, just another footnote. Ladies and gentlemen, to go on with our tour, we are here in the palace, residential palace, and if you look around here, well, this is a part of the historical substance. These arcades, these are running from 1590, 1592. Well, if you turn around, this is not that old. This is 2003, 2005. And in that time, in that period, they also decided to cover that inner roof, or that inner courtyard with that modern roof above our heads in order to get an entrance lobby for the 7 museums in the palace here. And let me use that chance with the roof for talking a bit more about the year 1945. Well, since you asked me many times about that part of the history, well, I guess you know such pictures. Half of the world looked like that after World War II. Well, many cities in Europe looked like this. Especially if I'm together with Germans, I always try to tell them this could be Warsaw. This also could be Rotterdam. This also could be Sheffield, Coventry, Manchester. 40,000 killed in London by Germans, 40,000. And well, the Allies, they fought back with all they had. And 130 cities in Germany were actually totally erased. Dresden very much to the end of the war, February 45, it was the last undestroyed, undamaged actually, German big city. It was like that because we are here very much in the southeast of Germany and just too far away from the UK where the plane started. And for a long time they were not able to come here, drop the bombs and to go back. That changed a lot from July 44 on, with the landing of the Allies, well, in France, and then also the Saxon cities like Chemnitz, Zwickau, Plauen, Leipzig, of course, and Dresden were hit by these air raids. And February 1945, we lost 25,000, and let me say it in miles, square miles, 7-8 square miles of our built city, 15 square kilometers, something like this. The inner center, the historical city center, it's just a quarter square kilometer, 6 square miles, something like this. This city, they cleared from the ruins. Now see, look on this picture taken in the middle of the 1960s. The city is not there anymore. Well, it's not that very spot where we are now. That picture shows a region, an area 300-400 meters in southern direction from here, but just taken out as an example. The first city planners, they said we will need 80 to 100 years to rebuild the city. And if you look on this, they were right. We have big reconstruction even in our time, right now, today, big reconstruction after World War II, and we will go on with this for the next 10 or 15 years, I guess. So what I just wanted to say, what we call the old town of Dresden, this is just 12, 14 historical buildings, what they left there as monumental ruins for later recovering. Like the opera, like the Zwinger, the gallery, and finally the palace as well. And Our Lady's Church, of course. Well, 14, 15, let's say, together with Our Lady's Church, 15 historical buildings, which are still in Dresden. Well, but group is complete again?
Close. I'll stay
I
behind
guess.
with anyone.
Okay. So, since these museums are, sorry for that, closed today, got other chances in the Zwinger or in the Albertinen, what I will talk about a bit. Let's go out, move to the left in order to see the stable courtyard. That's another. We call it in German Fürstenzug. Fürstenzug. It's like, well, an ancient gallery, open air. The ruling family of Saxony, the Wettins, they started ruling, or they took over power here in the nowadays Saxony in the medieval ages back in the 12th century. And they didn't left the power for centuries, for 829 years. They were ruling over Saxony for, well, without any gap. This is a pretty long time, 829 years, until 1918. And their entire history you can find here on that wall. There are more than 80 figurines here. 35 of them have their names and normally also two numbers, like him, August II. That's the one I was talking so much about. The one with 356 children. The one with the officially 9 children. The one with the son with the big wedding party. The one who switched confession. There are many stories in that mural, even about Saxon history. The painter who designed that was like his major work, and he spent more than 20 years on this. And there are many, many, many stories, even small details. I see here the Luther's Rose, and the Luther's Rose. Look, Augustus the Strong. He switched confession. Now look under the red foot, under the right foot of Augustus the Strong's horse. There's a rose, and the horse is trampling on it. That is Luther's rose, also a symbol that for Augustus the Strong he didn't mind. He didn't mind religion in general or confession. He just switched for becoming king, for the power. So there are many more of these stories written here. This is all made, that's not painted directly on the wall, just like a mural. This is made more like a jigsaw puzzle of 25,000 tiles. You can see it here. The first floor is covered with sandstone, but then from the first floor up to the roof, everything is like squared. You see it best in these blinded windows there. These are 25,000 tiles, and these tiles, by the way, were made from Meissen porcelain. And, as another footnote, that mural is the only site I can introduce to you here in the very center of Dresden what was not destroyed totally by World War II. That was a bit damaged, 200 and something, more than 400 years ago, as royal stable, or electoral stable for the Saxon rulers. First floor, there was space for 130 horses. Second floor, there was a saddle chamber, so saddle stuff for riding was stored up on there. Although the armory was there, where they stored weapons and stuff. And they also parked the coaches there on the second floor. And if you ask, how did they get them up? Yes, it's like on a modern parking lot of 21st century on that ramp. We invented that. 1592, no. That ramp, by the way, was also used by the knights who dressed in iron up there in the armory. Then they came down here on their horses, and that long designed, long-shaped courtyard, that was actually used as jousting courtyard. You know what is a jousting when the knights try to buy a lance? So, dangerous sport. Like this, just like this. I once saw a movie by the Monty Pythons from the UK. The Cup Nights? No, no. I don't remember well. I don't remember too well that movie. Well, but that was dangerous. That was more, I guess, more dangerous than we can imagine today. 2 nights. 2 nights. One starts here, the other one over there. If they both meet in the middle, both have a speed of 20 miles an hour, something like this. So imagine yourself sitting on a horse in a saddle, dressed in iron of 50, 60, 70 pounds. Then you are hit by a lance with a speed of 40 miles an hour, pushed out of the saddle, and then you fell down here on that ground. The physicians, they had all hands full of work to do. And the plumbers and so. Well, of course. When such jousting was over, or these arcades, that was like a sporting arena. Underneath these arcades, wooden seats were constructed. These windows were used by the upper nobility, by the upper court. And when such jousting was over, or the people, the dinosaur, the family came back from a hunt or a trip or whatever, that fenced area, that was used as bathtub for the horses. We call it Pferdeschwemme in German, Pferdeschwemme. And then they bring the horses back to the stable courtyard. Just follow me through the building. There, by the way, we will see the most heaviest bicycle on planet Earth. Let's see. Yeah, 1,040 kilograms. Huh? Oh, sorry. Yeah. If you're interested in locomotives, steam engines, maybe bicycles, historical ones, vintage cars, just come back later here. It's very popular for Dresden families and Dresden children. Hello. And right now, for 2 weeks, or this is the last week, the children have their annual time off. This is what I like. Come a bit together. Because I've got one picture here taken 1900, 1910, and the photographer just stood there, or maybe 20 meters over here, but more or less it's that angle. In the very center, it's a historical picture, postcard, well, a bit enlarged. In the center you see the church is totally black, since it's 200 years old here on that picture, and totally oxidized for that reason, black. 3 buildings here, 1, 2, 3 over there, or this corner building with the twin windows you find here, well, 1900, 1910, something like that. On weekends, especially on weekends, you can find horse cabs again, horse coaches again. Oh, well, that picture before World War I. Actually, they should finish these works with delivering jobs and so at 10, but no idea, maybe not in time. Well, before World War I, now we jump. After World War II, not much of that church still stood upright. Two sections, you see both of them. That's the other reason why I brought you here, why I asked you to follow me to here. You see both of these sections from here, black on the edges of the building. Well, this is a part of a stair house. Well, there are 4. This is one part of a stair house, what you can see on the left edge of the building. And this is where the altar is in. This is the apsis, the choir. on the left, no, sorry, right edge for you, right edge of this building. Well, just two sections. There's the upright end, Martin Luther, he laid here. The monument of Martin Luther was placed 1883 for his 400th anniversary. It's the same to Newmarket Square. Two more pictures. The upper one, it's in the late, that was taken in the late 1940s when they had to do with bringing all these rubble stones or all these, to put first the ruins all down by mechanics, not by any technologies, no engines, where just by hard work they put all the ruins down and brought it out of the cities. That's quite typical from German cities, that there are rubble hills. Even in Dresden there are three of them. Though in Berlin you have the biggest one, or ones, or in Hamburg or Munich there are bigger ones. Well, and this is 1950 something, 1956. The other picture, you can see sheep here grazing. And in the middle of the 50s, the government decided not to bring or to stop these works in order to let that ruin here as a monument against war and destruction. That was the basic idea behind. If I think about, if I try to imagine that side, that square, with all these buildings, all these houses, all the residential houses complete, people living in, or there are hotels, shops and offices, of course, but with life in. And then such a ruin in the very center of the square. This could be a strong statement. But all that square, all that side, all these buildings were not reconstructed in the GDR times from the ground on, just during the last couple of years. 1989, they changed minds and many things, or we changed minds, even what to do with that ruin, and they decided to rebuild it as church. There are weddings, baptists, 2 times a day, God's service, and what they did, just two facts about the reconstruction of the church. First, they wanted to use or not to use money coming from the government. They wanted to rebuild it by donations. They were very successful with that idea. That building, 140 millions, where the construction cost, 104 millions came by free donations from more than 40 countries, even from the UK, from the US, from everywhere. Well, and so they could start in the early 90s. And what they first had to do, there's a second fact about the reconstruction. Oh, thank you. They wanted to reuse as many as possible from these historical rubble stones which still were here. Well, they did it in an archaeological way, level by level. Before they moved any of these stones, they made a 3D picture, measured everything very correct, and what exact their ways on the facades. And well, the work was done 2005, October 30th, Reformation Day, reopened, and it's there for 12 years now.
What was the year?
2005 reopened. Well, and from that time on, or the city, it's all a private investment, but the city planned to rebuild a part of that historical Dresden, like an echo of that what went up in flames back in 45. And this is what goes on here. This is reconstruction after World War II, recovering the city after World War II, because these are the first buildings which are here for now 70 years. And in a few years, I guess, even here, the work will be done. That is like, for me it seems, or to me it seems still a bit like a movie set, because all these buildings are very rectangular, more rectangular than ever in the past in the history, and very bright and very clean, everything. But, well, it's the decision what the Dresdeners took to heal the city.
Willst du mit Löff oder willst du eine Weile nur warten?